Welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast, where the mind and gym come together to help you live your best life. Hosted by two fitness professionals and your personal trainers, Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie. And we are back once again with the Think Fitness Life podcast, mindset, exercise, and nutrition with your hosts, Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie. We're going to be talking this week about recovery post-workout, breathing techniques, and probably get into some nutrition afterwards. And before we get going, we will divulge our weekly workout and we'll save our food for thought for the end. That's the mental workout for the week. So the weekly workout this week is going to be heavy volume. It's going to be picking 10 exercises, and you can do 3 rounds of 10 reps of each exercise with a 30 seconds rest as you move on to the next exercise. Now, you can feel free to pick your 10 favorite, but our recommendations are these bigger body movements, and this is just a good template, and it can be done with weights, it can be done with body weight, just depending on your fitness level and where you're at with your goals. So my recommendation, or our recommendation, is squat, hinge, push up, row, heels elevated squat, lunge, overhead press, reverse flies, which you will need weight for most likely, sit-ups, and lying leg raises. But with all of those, you really don't need anything. You can really just do a hinge, just bowing. Heels elevated squat, you just need a step to put your heels on. And reverse flies technically can be done with just your arms. That's a brutal workout. 3 rounds, 10 reps, 30 seconds, moving on to the next exercise. And that's it. That's good for the day.
Efficiency. Yeah, this isn't one where you pick, if you have a gym or weights, you don't pick like triceps or biceps. Like, you want to get bang for your buck on this one. This is the one where you're going to go hard for 10 reps, for the whole 10 exercises, and then repeat it 2 more times after the first set. And then we get to done recovery, which is I feel like it's always been a big topic. What do I do for recovery? Do I do too much? Do I do too little? And I think people get kind of stuck in between this pull of what to do.
Well, I think it comes down to people want to kind of shut off. They want to not have the responsibility of taking care of themselves, right? It's like a little bit of having too much on their plate at once, pun intended. So that when they do get time to dedicate to themselves outside of taking care of their kids, outside of working, outside of having a loving relationship still with their spouse, it's almost comes from a place of guilt. It's like, oh man, I haven't done so much in so long. I need to just like get after it. I need to just like murder myself and destroy myself. And that's not always the right answer. And we've learned that the hard way, working with so many people for so many years, that sometimes less is more. And it's important to think of kind of a week at a glance. And I think that helps people put things into separate categories of understanding how their body will recover and be prepared for the next like high intensity workout. But yeah, I think it's a great topic to cover. I think too many times people just think recovery is just time. You don't have to do anything. Just need more time. And I guess I think of the person who doesn't work out ever and does their first workout in the week, they're going to feel like by the third and fourth day, still feel like, I don't know if I'm ready yet to go back into it. My muscles still feel sore. And it's like, no, we do need to keep pushing it. And there are ways to actively recover so that you still feel well rested and refreshed and ready to go.
So let's take that person, because we would assume at this point, a lot of people are going to start returning to gyms at some point or getting weights. And the first time they're going to be like, oh, I want to go crazy because they have so much time to make up or reps or exercise. That next day or next 2 days, next 48 hours, they're going to feel sore. Now, we really can't do much, preventing the delayed onset of muscle soreness. Like, it's going to be there. but we
And
can,
really, to your point, real quick, a lot of times people do things to mitigate that DOMS, and you're not letting your body get better at its recovery system anyway. Like
yes.
they'll hop in the sauna right away, or they'll hop in those Normatec boots right away, or they'll sit on a foam roller right after they work out and foam roll everything. So yeah, go ahead.
Which might help, but it's inevitable because if you do dynamic movements with eccentric and concentric muscle actions, you're gonna get that soreness, which is a good thing. I think a lot of times people think, or I have two things. Two people think it's a bad thing that they worked out too hard and they can't do anything until that soreness goes away, which is wrong. You know, we've all been there. You wake up sore, you get moving the next day, that soreness kind of goes away. It still might be there a little bit, but as you get blood flow moving into the muscles, it's going to diminish. You get more nutrients in. That's the big thing that we want. A lot of people will be like, "Oh no, I'm too sore. I have to wait 1 or 2 days." A lot of the times, literature will say, "Okay, wait 24 hours." So you have your 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on. Works. You can do it.
For muscular, like
Right.
neuromuscular
Yeah,
adaptation.
or even just like regular adaptations because of the study that were done. They showed that. But it doesn't mean if you're sore 48 hours after, 2 days after, doesn't mean you can't work out. People come in, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm super sore. Maybe I should hold back today." I'm like, "No, just go do your workout. What's written down because you'll get through that." And then once they get through the first week of any new program or more or less like a high volume phase program, your body not be ready for it goes away. It adapts to it really
Right.
quick.
And that's the big thing about working out when you're sore is you're really gaining momentum. And I know Menchie loves this word allosteric, and to really enhance that allosteric response, it's about what you're doing in a short period of time that you're forcing your body to make adaptations to. So if your homeostasis is at a certain level and you work out one day that week and you do nothing else for the week until you feel good again, your homeostasis came right back to the same level. But if you can elevate that, so it's like you're just lifting it up plus one every day for 4 or 5 days in a row, now that new homeostasis response comes back down to above where your normal homeostatic level was. And that's how you make the adaptations. And you can think of the way that preseason worked. A lot of our listeners and clients are former athletes, whether it was just in middle school or high school, but they understand the concept of preseason, which was like 2 weeks of hell that exaggerated the demand on your body so that your body was going to be ready to sustain a heavy dosage of demand in season. So it's like 2 weeks of throwing you off of your homeostatic level, almost like your baseline, and get you at that allosteric level. That's your new homeostasis to make you be able to perform during season.
Right. And what was preseason? Every day
2 weeks.
practice, right? Every
Right.
day.
And twice a day
So
sometimes.
you
Shit.
look, yeah, you look at sports and take the concepts of a preseason sports and say, you never showed up like, "Hey, coach, I'm sore today." He's like, "All right, let's take a day off." It's like, no, like you're
Yeah.
sore, that's fine, but we still have practice, we still have running, we still have drills, we still have that. Then they'd say you have to take care of your body outside of the practice field and post practice. That's the big thing where it's just not like you can't just practice, go expect to, maybe drink one water, eat some food, and be 100% the next day. It's what you do as soon as the workout ends, the practice ends, the game ends. Between that and the next competition or next workout session, that's the most important part.
Yeah. And a lot of that time, a lot of time that isn't coached. And I think the reason it's not coached at a younger age is because we are younger, and age does play a role into the elasticity we have. So it's really easy to remember the times that you did 2 a days for 2 weeks of hell, and you probably didn't even feel that sore. You felt more tired and demoralized looking back on it, but you don't ever you might not remember like pain, agonizing soreness. unless you were like heavy weight training in the gym. Like a lot of football players would do two a days, so like
Yeah.
one on the field, one in the gym. And I think that because of that, it sets into the cycle of like, oh, I don't need to worry about recovery. It just automatically does it, right? And that's why it's less coached and less discussed unless you're like a D1 athlete. And then they're really talking about your recovery because it plays a major role in your performance for the next day's game. And especially a lot of baseball players who are doing like repetitive movements, throwing with one arm or pitching with one arm or batting one direction. It takes a lot of extra recovery to make sure the body doesn't come up with any imbalances and it still be able to perform the next day to its highest ability. So I think what's interesting is a lot of recovery discussions is around, hot and cold or ice baths or Normatec boots, but rarely do people emphasize the importance of nutrition and different breathing techniques that you could be doing to aid in your recovery.
Yeah. Like even on the nutrition side, like one of the biggest things, especially now that we're in summer, it's hot out, is fluid intake. Like if you want to see like system recovery, not we're past muscle soreness now. Like if you're outside working, you need to replenish fluids because as soon as you get a 2 to 3% drop of hydration levels, performance is going to fall. So think like people, you come off the field, doesn't matter what sport, if it's a high vigor sport, you got to think, okay, I need to get fluids back in, whatever I just sweated out and lost, and I got to get electrolytes back in. Because if you don't do that, and say
And
you get a
just get
little
more
bit, you wake up tomorrow, you're gonna feel sluggish, you're gonna feel off, you might be
hungover.
slow. Like that's a huge thing that even tell my clients like, okay, yeah, even if you don't do anything, make sure you're hydrating because we just did a hard workout. You don't have to go do 20,000 modalities. You could just
Have
go
you?
sit
Sorry, go ahead.
sit on a chair outside and drink a gallon of water and your
Hmm.
body's going to come back.
Yeah, if you've seen these Noon tablets, these electrolyte tablets, and that's just one brand, NUUN. There tend to be at like sports stores, kind of like right at the checkout counter. And I was actually on a hike where we did like a 12-hour hike a couple weeks ago, and right around like the last 2 hours, I was just feeling sluggish, and my buddy I was hiking with was just like, "Here, try one of these." And you usually you drop it in your water and drink it. I just chewed it. So it was like really salty, really salinity. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
little bitter, but it was crazy. Like I just really did, and I just figured like, okay, I'm supposed to be sluggish now. Like I've been hiking for 10 hours in 95-degree heat, like just drinking water. Like I'm okay with it. He's like, hey, just eat this, and I really did. I felt like energized again just by replenishing the electrolytes on a simple scale like that, and I think it's just super important when you think about the body as in like a systems biology approach, the way that your motor is firing in a car, and eventually it is going to run out of little substrates for recovery or for fuel partitioning in general. And these are just micronutrients. So it's something as simple as having like an electrolyte tablet, or like sometimes they're little gels, just mixing in with your water so that your water is actually providing you with nutrients. And speaking of water, that's another one that's overlooked. But a lot of our water coming out of our faucet has like 300 to 400 total dissolved solvents parts per million in it. So it's a bunch of other bullshit that you don't want, that's going to actually be like throwing sand into your motor, that's going to just cause poor firing on the cylinders. But also, you don't want purified water, because pure 100% clean water with zero TDS, meaning total dissolved solvents in it, is actually going to pull minerals out of your body. It's going to do the opposite of resupplying electrolytes to your system and minerals to your system. It's going to help because the water wants something. It's running through you. It's going to grab onto things and exit your body. So you want a good quality water. You want minerals to be in your water. So if you have a home filter system, you want like a remineralizer along with a reverse osmosis. But yeah, hydration is a super important tool, and I think it can be enhanced by throwing a little electrolyte tablet in it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be Gatorade because Gatorade is
Oh, no, no.
heavy on the sugars. And we used
Yeah.
to, I mean, we used to use Gatorade all the time, but we would water it down because otherwise on the soccer field you got a cramp right away.
Right. You don't want too much sugar. Too much sugar leads to too quick of gastric emptying, and that's not a good thing for the system.
Yeah.
But nowadays we're seeing more of those things, like better options of electrolyte fluids than
Mhm.
just Powerade and Gatorade.
But I think too,
But it's
we've
still good to get in.
seen, a new focus on the smaller details of things,
Right.
of water, of air, like two really important things where it can be easy to get distracted by like the invention of the Normatec boots and things like that that also aid in recovery,
Oh yeah.
but in a way they actually hinder your own system from doing what it should be doing.
Yes. Depending on which ones,
Totally,
and
totally,
depending on how
and
you
in
use them.
and what modality
Right.
and time.
Right. And that's the big thing because for recovery, you know, I love ice baths. They're great, but research really doesn't support that you're going to get optimal structural recovery. You might feel great, which is great because if you want to go play, your CNS is ready to go. But if I'm doing a heavy lift day or say a big hypertrophy day, and I jump in an ice bath, it's not that great because I'm getting less.
You're just removing the
Yeah,
inflammation.
and I want that to produce more muscle growth, and research has shown that
Right.
you get kind of less of it. So it's like that might not be the best thing post lift workout if your goal is hypertrophy. There's
Yeah.
certain things that you just don't want you want to drive, and there's always a break. We have to have periods of high stress for an adaptation, and then there's periods of recovery. we we've talked about this many times. If you try to do too much recovery or too many modalities and you're not letting the stress build up, your body won't adapt to the stress.
Right.
So
Right.
you can't,
And
people are into this. Like you said, you can't be like, all right, I'm going to Normatec today, then later I'm going to ice bath, then I'm going to sauna. It's like your body's going to try to get pulled in too many directions. If you're like hitting a high hypertrophy day, you might just go home and, hey, I'm going to eat well. I'm going to get my protein, what I need. I'm going to get off my feet and let my legs recover. People don't need all those things in one day.
yeah, and it's so true about what you're saying. And for to help people understand it is it's like literally instead of giving your body the recovery it needs, you need to let it learn how to force that recovery in its own system, and you improve that system. So a lot of times we talk about the fight and flight system, your sympathetic nervous system. Well, your parasympathetic nervous system is kind of the other end of that coin that's going to aid in recovery. So if you just constantly take care of the recovery side of things on your own, without letting your systems kick in, you're never enhancing your parasympathetic nervous system, and that elasticity that we talked about losing with age only becomes more detrimental to you because you haven't spent time improving that recovery system. But I thought it was interesting just chatting with you about different breathing techniques because it really is about like simplistic solutions. And kind of another um, another piece of information to your point is research showing that something like a low intensity walk does something better for your system in terms of shutting it down at the end of the workout, ready for the next workout, than spending 15-20 minutes with some static stretching.
Hmm. So I have been playing with this myself lately, and I have a little more time. And I've over when I first started in this industry, like the post workout stretching was always a big thing, and I don't want to knock it. Just like I want to say, like we're not knocking ice baths or saunas or recovery. We're just talking in the context of goal driven for recovery for performance. Like those things have very good physiological adaptations for the body outside of what we're talking about with recovery right now. just
Well,
so,
I think it's
like
important to.
just saying like we're not ice baths aren't bad. Like ice baths are good, but we're talking about recovery for the next workout. But like yeah, so stretching. Everyone's like okay afterwards, dynamic stretching or even static stretching, which okay, I never really felt like a benefit from it. I was just kind of like okay, this is a time where to me it was literally just like I'm wasting time. Like within that 5 to 10 minutes, I probably could have done another set of biceps or triceps or some more abs or something else. And it was like, okay, after a while, like, what's the point? So then I kind of got into the delving with the breathing and the walking. So post workout, you can either do some breathing techniques, stimulate parasympathetic recovery systems, so you're not simply going to bring this tension down and tone off the systems, or just go for a walk, literally walking, but not walking with a cell phone, not walking with a, you know, an iPod or an iPad in your hand, walking with free motion. Let the arms swing, feeling your steps, maybe overstriding sometimes, changing your pace up, just to see how your body's and you're moving. You're moving fluid around, your flow, you're pushing, your lymphatic system's pushing all that fluid around. You're getting new blood, fresh blood to the muscles you just worked out. And it kind of for me, it kind of gives you a chance to just think about your workout or your thoughts of what you're going to do for the day, the rest of the day. And, 5-10 minute quick walk, get off. All right, we're good. It's kind of like it's just like a reset for the system,
And you really
especially,
want to exaggerate the arms
yes,
and the
arm swing.
legs and go slow. And you're really trying to get your body to stimulate all of those muscles that you already used for the workout, but realize, like, okay, I don't have to keep that tension there and just shut those muscles down, shut things off. And that's why Menchie wants you off your phone because so many times, in the gym in general, people are distracted and they're not mentally there and they're not getting anything out of their workout. But I do want to wind up or rewind real quick and just mention that, yeah, we're not saying that these other modalities are bad, but we are consequently saying that this is a better route. Research has shown, experience has shown, this is a better route for making a better system. If you think about the biological machine that each individual is, you're building a better independent system. And that doesn't mean that you never use the Normatec boots. It doesn't mean you never use an ice bath. It doesn't mean you never do static stretching at the end of your workout. It's just ideally you would want to have a really sound parasympathetic nervous system and a really sound sympathetic nervous system. Hey, shit. I mean, ideally, I can spend 5-10 minutes warming up and I'm good to hit my workout. That's ideal. There's still some days where I spend a little bit extra time, kind of whatever, like soft tissue work on my right trap or something on my left hip. Like there's just things come up. It doesn't mean that you neglect them. It's just that you still want to strive for this overall goal of improving your systems and making a well-rounded organism that you can.
Yeah, that's the end goal. And that's the beauty. What I've kind of found with walking is as we get that because see hard workouts if everything's mainly let's call it bilateral lifts, squats, deadlifts, presses, walking gets the body moving in all planes, triplanar motion, rotation, forward movement, backwards movements. And to bring in, if you have a phone or something in your hand, that can throw off your arm swinging.
Mm.
You watch people when they walk with a phone, um, they're either looking down at it, which is going to change their forward locomotion and change their head posture, or they're holding something and they're not swinging their arms. But on the flip side, you could add nothing heavy. You could add an object in someone's hand to get them to recognize how to swing a hand. So, take for instance, like your client, one of your clients, we're going to teach them how to swing an arm. Maybe their right arm doesn't swing as much as their left. Okay, let's give them a tennis ball to hold. If it's a baseball player, give them a baseball. I want you to walk with this and deliberately swing your arm. Just walk down and back. You could even do like 20, 30 yards or even less and just see what they get. I've been actually doing it also in between sprints. Okay, you sprint to the 25 yard or sprint 15 seconds. I want you to go walk across the gym floor and back before your next sprint. Instead of sitting on a rower or sitting on a fan bike for that recovery, I make them get up, walk and breathe, and then come back and then hit the second one. So now they're thinking, okay, they're walking, they're thinking about the second sprint, but they're not sitting on the machine looking at the time going, all right, I got to drive my system. They're coming back and say, okay, go. That's how I've been using walking lately. And it's helped people like why the walking because it just gets you to move in different variations than they might be used to, and it gets them to slow down a little bit in between so they get more out of the next sprint. You could do it with lifting too.
Yeah, the idea is to slow things down because so many times people kind of consequently keep their sympathetic nervous system firing all day long, and then they're usually depleted by the end of the night, crashing. They're not really ready for the next day's workout because their recovery system never kicked in. And I think that's the beauty of just even getting someone to take 1 minute at the end of the workout to just focus on a walk, deliberately, intentionally try to relax and shut your system down. And that's really hard for people to do. And what's funny is um, I'll save time now because I've instructed people to do it because I'm like, I don't want to, I don't need to waste 5 minutes of their time. We could be doing some work. And then now I'm like, no, like I'm holding you accountable. You have 2 minutes. I'll start with like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. Just depends on the person. Just walk on the treadmill. Shut your system down. Realize everything you did today was enough, and it's time to shut your system down to recover for next day's workout. And this becomes so much more. If you're just a beginner and you're just trying to get into the swing of things, it's important, but it becomes even more important um, as you progress through your own fitness journey and the intensity of your workouts increases and the frequency of the higher intensity of the workouts increases. And it's at that point when it's super important to be able to tap into your recovery system. And it's just kind of funny because I feel like talking about age earlier, I do feel like when I was younger, I didn't really care about my recovery system except just getting a good night's sleep and just pounding a shit ton of calories. It doesn't matter what I was eating. And as I get older, the focus has been less on the sympathetic drive and more on that recovery side of things and the preparation side of things pre-workout, you know? Do you feel like things have changed for your training, your personal training and your fitness?
Yeah, I think especially as we're younger and we're teenagers, we hit puberty, we get our hormone spike, and then high school, even some probably in college, like the system's just still growing so rapidly, and it's like it adapts to things really, really quick.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like not saying that you can just get away with working out and eating anything and doing nothing. Like recovery goes a long way, but I don't really need or think kids really they're not thinking about it, so they don't really care as much. Like you take a 16-year-old kid off of a sports field and he's like, oh man, that was a great practice, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. Like the last thing they really want to do is jump in an ice bath or be like, hey dude, you're gonna go jump in these Normatex. They're gonna be like, why? Like what's the point of it? So maybe that's one aspect, but I think the body's just so resilient at young ages. I mean, even look at kids 5 and 6 years old. I mean, their systems are so flexible. Their muscles are just different elasticities than ours are. So it's like I think it has that ability to recover and adapt to a little bit differently. But then as we get older, and especially as we get developed like 25 plus, you get a different quality of elasticity in muscle tissues and tissues
Yeah.
that you need to be a little bit more aware about and take care of.
And
And
be a little more diligent about,
we
right?
come into this lifestyle of just more of being an adult, right? More sitting, maybe more desk work, more whatever. That now like things can happen, so people might need to take care of themselves more. Or on the other side, if you're professional athletes, it can enhance that recovery just a little bit. And if it's a little bit, 5%, that's better than someone else, you might see that effect. And I'm sure there's people out there that, you probably know them. They can lift and eat, and they don't really need to recover, and they're cranking away. It all depends on the
Yeah,
person. Every athlete or
totally.
person is a little bit different.
Yeah, and it's important to realize that and not let your brain trick you by comparing yourself to other people all the time, which is human nature. We all get kind of envious and compare ourselves to others. It's just how it works. But it's just kind of funny when I think about it. Like some of the extreme athletes who aren't trainers, their perspective for some of the average looking people in the gym is just like, oh, they're not working hard enough. And then um, on the side of like say your average Joe who just getting started and has some weight to lose and needs some body composition and is going through a body transformation, they look at those extreme athletes as like, man, they're just fucking getting after it 24/7, right? Like they're just hauling ass 24/7. And in reality, that's not what they're doing. Like they're probably sprinting 3 times a week, and they're probably doing some strength work with mixed in with some power twice a week. And they are more focused on the recovery side of things. Recovery being just nutrition and sleep and just general lifestyle outside of the gym. So it's just kind of funny because the perception of what they need to be doing can totally be off. And it can be kind of archaic to think like I just need to work harder. I just need to work harder. I just need to work harder. It's like you just need to work smarter and
Exactly.
really understand your system and what your system needs and what's responding well to, what's not responding well to. And
So if you take that, like your sleep and nutrition, probably the two biggest pillars for recovery, right? If you don't have a sound base like our GPP base, right? If you don't have a sound base there, I kind of tell people like, yes, it's still good that you can do ice baths or saunas or whatever the recovery, but if you don't have that base of sleep and nutrition, that other stuff's not going to work to its full effect. Like they didn't have that stuff thousands of years ago, and we still were able to adapt, right? Like
yeah,
proper food and nutrition and quality sleep, number of hours. Like that's how our body regenerates. Like those are the
I,
two biggest things. If people ask for recovery, it's like, okay, we can get to the other stuff, but what does your nutrition and sleep look like? Because if you go home and like, oh man, hey, I just got these Normatec and I'm gonna try this, this, and this. I got everything, but man, I just drank some soda. I had a burger and fries, and I'm on 6 hours of sleep. I'm like, well, those other things aren't going to do anything for you
yeah,
because your system's already internally going to be battling more stress because of what you're putting into it and the lack of sleep.
yeah. They probably didn't have learned helplessness thousands of years ago either. But it's like necessity is the mother of invention. When you have no other outlet and have no way to do it, your body will find a way. But you really can't have an option to quit, or else your brain will find it and take the path of least resistance. Just biology. So when we're talking about all different methods of recovery, and obviously people know what our bias is in terms of what we prefer, but I wanted to hear an example of how you can incorporate different breathing techniques to aid in your recovery.
Yeah, so the breathing is kind of where I really like to take my recoveries just because breathing stimulates the vagus nerve and we can stimulate parasympathetic activities and change autonomic activities through it. There's hundreds of positions we can use for breathing techniques. Some that I love are just the traditional 90-90 hip lift, um, a all fours, bare position, knees on
Quadruped.
the floor, or even a side lying left, especially left side lying to really expand the right side. So the goal for breathing is, you're exercising, so you're using oxygen as a rapid rate, and we want to perfect and get good lung perfusion. So the transfer of gases from the blood from the lungs and vice versa. So if we can optimize that post workout, we can start to influence our recovery. There's also been ways where I've done it where you put your feet up on a wall and you breathe and you kind of let that blood flow come from the legs, the lymph drain system as you're breathing in. And with the breathing, it's not just you're sitting there huffing and puffing. It's controlled breathing. Sometimes I use box breathing. So inhale for 4 seconds, find a pause, exhale for four. And it can be 4 to 6 seconds. You could do three inhale, pause for five, exhale for six. There's variations, but it's very similar to meditation where it's mindful breathing. So you're not there just like breathing, breathing. You're actively trying to slowly control your breathing to bring your system down, to take tension
and
out of your systems.
and the nerve that Menchie was just talking about there, the vagus nerve, it actually starts in our gut and sends signals up to our brain, and um, I think it's the most densely populated nerve with nerve signals in our body. So it's really controlling our body. And what's kind of funny is your breath, when you can kind of link up your breathing or deliberately focus on your breath, you're kind of not synchronizing, what's the word? Like calibrating. You're kind of calibrating your system in a way. So it plays a major role. So how would you implement that? Is it something that you would just do post workout, like right at the end, or is something that you instruct people to do on their own?
No, I like to do it with them just so they can get the feel for it. Uh,
And what about like
I
the high,
don't
like
I don't
someone
really
like
trust
yourself?
breathing with people. So if
No,
I
I
like, oh,
agree.
go breathe, and they're give me 5 breaths, I'll time them, and they're done with five in like 6 seconds, and I'm like,
I guess what I was getting at was the effectiveness. Does it have to come right after you're done your workout, like right when you're starting your parasympathetic nervous system? Or is it something that you yourself like to do kind of later at night, maybe?
um, I like to do it in certain positions after the workout. So after the
Okay.
workout, I'll lie in a 90-90 or get in all fours and control that for 5 to 6 breaths. And then I'll pick two positions that I want to breathe in and just really control. And with the breathing, putting in their body in certain positions, you're taking tensions off the muscles you might have just used, and you're telling them to reposition and control and expand with inhalation in the proper position. And as you exhale, compress properly. So you're not trying to breathe against tight muscles. You're actually toning your whole system down. And with that, you can get the same effect as stretching, as in increasing ranges of motion through breathing and posture, through hips, thorax, and diaphragm movement. And that's a big thing
Yeah.
that I'm
And that's
also
where you want to be breathing into.
that's where I'm
Right.
getting into is like, okay, great, you could do a hip flexor stretch, but if I put you in a 90-90 and slightly posterior tilt your hips back and exhale and feel the abs turn on a bit and the ribs down, and you breathe like that, I can shut a hip flexor off like that too. So that's what I'm going more for. And just because, when someone's on the table and I'm stretching them, like you go to the point where they're feeling a stretch, that's going to tell their system, timeout. I have to kind of like maybe get a little sympathetic because now I'm getting to a point where this muscle's put on a really big stretch. I have to kind of like fight against it so this person doesn't rip my muscle off.
Mm,
So even if I do stretch someone like that, I'm more focused on I'm just going to have them feel that muscle, and then I
yeah.
have them breathe.
Yeah.
Inhale, expand the rib cage, exhale. And on the exhale, they're actually doing the stretch for me. Like their
Yeah.
breathing is helping me help them open up that muscle more. So for stretching, I would say you don't really need to put a lot of force into stretching someone. Like they're going to stretch themselves through breathing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to spend like, if I am manually stretching someone, it's like 3 to 5 minutes at most. And more of what I find is we're getting less out of the actual static stretch and more out of the fact that they get to lay there and do nothing and just breathe and
Yes.
just focus on getting things to feel loose again. And I mean, yeah, I am concerned with range of motion, but it's never it's never bad in people at the end of the workout because it should have been good for the workout, right? But
Right. And
yeah,
whatever, if you give them more, like they're just going to get up and walk and sit down. Like you might not be really influencing crazy range of motion post workout. Like you said, you've already got it
right.
prior. So
You should just be working on variety. So
yeah,
like I'll hit calf, I'll hit glute, I'll hit and overstimulate the hip flexor as well, pushing that knee in, and then I'll get hamstring and a lot of just dynamic movement with all of them, with the calf, with the knee to the chest, with the foot up, getting the dynamic movement of the hamstring, then to the side, getting their TFL, just moving. Just that's all I'm trying to do
yeah,
is get movement back to their hips, back to their lower body, and it's less about a stretch and more of just kind of like just a cool down run through of everything and focus and letting them just not focus on anything except relaxing and breathing.
yeah.
It's like they're one time at the end of the workout that they just shut down, and hopefully they don't have their phone in their hand.
Hopefully not. And what I've done lately because of this virtual training stuff is learn how to, well, not learn, but taking my stretching and put it into more dynamic flow at the end. So instead of being like, okay, we're going to hold this position, we're going to hold that, someone might start in a quadruped position, all fours, and reach their right arm through or underneath that left side and get thoracic rotation, hold for a second, come back and switch sides, and then bring legs up and knees up. They're getting stretches while their body's moving through space. That's another way I've
Yeah.
been implementing and doing it. And the person's like, wow, because each time they go back and re-reference that movement, they might get a little bit more range of motion out of it than just holding. And of course,
Mm.
you're focused on breathing with them a little bit as they're moving. So you're kind of telling their system it has movement options and variability. Because the last thing I want to do is have someone walk out of the gym floor with less movement variability than they came in with. Like, yeah,
Mm.
we can influence a little bit, or might have if it was a hard workout because their quads are tight, they're going to have, but it's less movement variability, but they shouldn't have like completely less. And I shouldn't lock them up more. So at the end, it's like they come in, you got to unlock someone from maybe being tight from sitting at a desk all day. You unlock them, then you say, hey, I'm going to lock you back up, sympathetic system, maybe not like bad way of lock up, but like I'm going to get your system up and ready. Now I have to kind of unlock you out of that tension. And I want you walking out of here without that tension on the system. That's why sometimes even at the end of workouts, like doing stuff people like some of my clients love doing biceps and triceps. Like that's a big feel good thing. Instead of be like, all right, you know, we're gonna do this at the end, which is gonna be challenging. They've already done a lot of challenging things in the workouts. Like, no, hey, I'm gonna throw you a couple sets of biceps and triceps. They're like, oh yeah, I like this. Like this is good. Like I can do this. It's sometimes it's a mental neurological thing for them. Like, ah, man, I feel good. And
Yeah,
that's all it is.
especially yeah, especially to enjoy it because there's definitely a level to which but especially when people are starting out, I find people get to a point where it's like a task, it's like a chore, it's a to-do list item. It's this arduous weight feeling of guilt if they don't do it, and it's this terrible, agonizing pain when they do it. And I think it is important to if not enjoy the actual workout itself, but enjoy what you're doing, taking care of your body. And um, the next thing I want to just get into and briefly touch upon is just we talk about it all the time, but I think the repetition is important. Is just the nutrition side of things,
Totally.
and especially as we get older, its importance in recovery, and specifically in terms of macronutrients, micronutrients, and timing, digestion, blood. We use 30% of your blood to aid in digestion. So if you just ate this heavy meal at like 11 o'clock at night and you're doing a morning lift at 6 7 in the morning, you're going to be lethargic for that workout whether you realize it or not that day. You're going to feel a lot better if you can time things appropriately to match your workout. So we talk about kind of your window of opportunity, post workout, you're like a squeezed out sponge. Your body's looking for to replenish glycogen, repair any muscle tissue, and basically get ATP ready for the demand it's going to need, or the demand put on it for the next day. So I like to think of that window of opportunity as like anywhere from 30 minutes after the workout ends to 2 hours after the workout ends. And that's when you want kind of your most nutritionally dense, largest meal. And then you really study has shown that digestion improves, performance improves of the individual, clarity improves in terms of focus when you can keep a shorter eating window. And it doesn't have to be every single day for the rest of your life, but try to do that once or twice a week of just shortening your eating window to like 6 8 hour window, because your digestive system's like any other system. It's like our sympathetic nervous system we're talking about before. If it's working nonstop, it won't be ready for the demand that you want to put on it when you go to that intense workout the next day. Same thing with your digestive system. If it's working nonstop, every day, 7 days a week, indefinitely, and then you're expecting it to handle just a pounding of food or whatever you're trying to do, kind of partitioning fuel for a workout, um, you're going to hinder that system rather than seeing its true potential, what it can do for you if you don't give it a break every now and then.
Nutrition is the big one. And also, giving it a break means not putting crap in, too. I think people
Yeah.
get lost with that. Like, giving a break is also time, but not putting junk in. I think a lot of people get this inverse relationship with it, with exercise and eating. Say, okay, if I exercise here, I can afford to have this. I can afford to do this. When in reality, that's like the last thing your body really wants is like poor quality food. You
Well,
come
how many
after a
times?
workout and your body's like, hey, what do I need to rebuild? So I just broke muscle down. So I definitely need protein to build more polypeptides and build more RNA, DNA, cell structures, you name it, to get built, it needs it. And we go and eat maybe minimal protein, high carbohydrates, high fat, which just creates more poor and bad oxidation in the system, which leads to free radicals, which leads to more stress, which leads to poor immune health. And how is that helping recovery? So when you explain it to people, they're like, oh, I never really thought of that. I just thought, well, I burnt 500 calories. That means I can
I
put
can have
500
400.
calories. Yeah, like,
Right.
doesn't work like that. And then you,
Right.
you don't get the quality recovery. So the next day or wherever you are, you're not going to hit your goals.
And, and we've talked about that in an episode, I think it was thoracic mobility, redlining, and calories. And we talked about a calorie isn't a calorie. And um, I think it's really important to mention and coach clients on kind of the emotional side of food. And I like, right when I meet with someone whose goal is weight loss, that's the first thing we talk about is like, listen, food cannot be your fix for a bad day or feeling shitty. And food can't be your reward system for doing something amazing. You have to find other outlets for those two things. And then we'll address boredom another day, right? But it's really about kind of setting yourself up so that you're not so emotionally tied to food, and you start to be that fly on the wall and understand what's better for your system, what's making you feel good, what's making you perform at your best. And you're literally getting more in tune with your body and the signals and feedback signals it may have already been trying to send you that you've just kind of been aloof to, or maybe you equated it to a bad night's sleep. But it is funny too. Another thing that elasticity changes as we age, because I remember just not even really knowing what I ate, or just eating garbage, or eating a lot of bread, eating a lot of pasta, eating a lot of bagels, and
Right.
thinking that was my fuel. And
Which it
um,
was.
I, I recovered fine. Yeah, it was a fuel for sure.
When you're younger, your body can get away with it.
It's again,
Not to say
exactly.
it's right, it can get away with
It's
it.
a exactly, and you have more. you have a thicker mucosal wall, and you have a better process of attaching to invaders that it otherwise doesn't know what to do with, and having them pass through your system. So as we age, that poor habit starts to manifest itself in bad posture, or bloating, or discomfort, or they're feeling hangry. So many people tell me, "Oh, I don't want to get hangry." I'm like, "Listen, man, you got to fix that right now, because you shouldn't have like a mood change based upon the food that you're putting in your body." I just think of like a lab rat, the way that they can get a lab rat to be angry and crave certain foods type of deal. And that's not what you want. That means that you have two main dopamine pathways to your brain's reward system. You're only using one pathway if you're really only firing on all cylinders to eat so you feel good. So I think it's just super important to
Yeah.
note that with a lot of people. And then you do get to start to understand, like, okay, what's going to be best for my body? What did I do for this workout? Okay, I'm going to need a lot more protein and a lot more vegetables and vitamins and fats to repair and strengthen my muscle, and improve for the next workout. Or maybe you just did a bunch of aerobic stuff or plyos, and again, your diet can adapt accordingly. Or tomorrow you're going to do a long workout, and it's going to be a lot of plyos, and you want to be fast and you want to feel light, so you'll eat like a smaller portion of good quality stuff the night before. So you do start to get, and you're the lab experiment, you start to get more methodical with your eating patterns, to be the host for the trillions of cells that you're a body for.
It's pretty simple for recovery. Protein, carbohydrates, post workout or post competition, post exercise.
See,
Protein to
I would
help rebuild.
disagree with carbohydrates. Just the word, just the terminology.
Yeah, but so carbohydrates is like a natural source. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, some sort of rice. I don't mean bagels, pizza, anything. I'm
Right.
talking like those are the two things.
And I agree with you, because I like to look at them more as like fibers, things that bulk up your stool to slow down digestion so you can get adequate absorption of those proteins, of those fats, of those vitamins and minerals that you put in your body. Because otherwise, just like a shake, sure, you can drink protein shakes all day long. Guess what? They're going in quick, they're going out quick.
Right.
And
And
you're
think
probably only getting 20-30% absorption of what so it's a really expensive poop is what you're doing.
and those carbs help, replenish glycogen because that's what we're using as energy sources, depending on what as mostly we're replenishing some sort of glycogen stores. So that's why you need them. But it's
They
got to
get
be like the
vilified
good
because a lot of
sources
people
of carbohydrates. The good
and a
sources.
lot of people there a lot of people's bodies systematically don't know how to produce ATP from fat, and you that's why I think carbohydrates get a bad rap, because it's just easier for that pathway to just turn over into ATP really quickly, whereas partitioning a fat cell to ATP requires like multiple processes to be in synchronization. So I think it's just, and we talk about our oxidative system being able to pull from all your different energy systems. That's what we want to improve. So that's where I have a bias to not promote carbohydrates, because I see a lot of people who um, aren't able to tap into their fat stores before I meet them. And
Right.
then we just clean up their diet, focus on their workout at a lower zone rather than high intensity all the time. And
Well,
yeah, just help.
you're talking like performance. I'm talking strictly. I love this. Is where the dichotomy. I'm talking strictly recovery. You know, like you're totally right, but like for here's like optimizing recovery. Now, this isn't for everyone. Let's take that away. For athletes or vigorous exercisers who are in the gym 5 to 6 days a week, really lifting, really putting their body under high doses of stress, will need protein and carbohydrates. If you're someone who's in a weight loss category or getting into general fitness, that might not be the right answer for you. Where you are right, Matt. Like that's you don't need to promote carbohydrates. And see how it's such a slippery slope. So people will be like, "Oh, he said carbohydrates are good," which
Right.
I'm right, but then there's a subgroup of people that there might not be the best for at that point. Ideally, eventually I want to get those people to be good at intaking carbohydrates, but that's just post workout. I don't mean you have to eat carbs in the morning,
Right.
at night. Like I'm just talking
Right.
post workout. In that window, we're talking 30 minutes to 2 hours. If you're looking for to optimize and regain the glycogen stores that you use during your workout, that's all that is.
And you're totally right because it's not about um, it's not about saying one way is bad or the other. It's really just about me emphasizing the fact that it can lead down a road of being one-sided and being um, having a single pathway for energy. But at the same time, you still want your body to be able to tap into its fat cells if it does need to aid in recovery. And then the last piece I want to say about this is too is like it's like saying homework's optional. 99% of the time when homework's optional, people aren't going to do it. When you
Nope.
tell people carbs are good for recovery, that's all they're going to focus on. Is they're
That
going
is
to
true.
get the breads, they're going to get the pastas, they're going to get all the baked goods. They're like, well, you said carbs were good. So that's why I like the term fiber. I like to say to bulk things up. I like the sweet potatoes, I like regular potatoes, I like white rice. Those are like my big three of a carbohydrate source. But really, a carbohydrate is really going to be more of a transporter molecule anyway than necessarily being a primary nutrient that's going to be added to your system in some way. It's more of the starch anyway that's going to be utilized into the ATP. But the carbohydrate, I mean, less than 2% of our chemical makeup is carbohydrates. We're mostly fats and proteins.
Yeah, I mean, because the body just takes those carbohydrates and just those carbon molecules and just boom breaks them down into literally just their energy. That's all
Yeah. And if you
carbohydrate
think of
is. It's
like
just energy bonds.
most things are closely related to a cholesterol molecule.
Yeah. So it's important like to have this, but more or less than that stuff. It's quality of foods. It's quality. It's quality. It's quality. You're putting in good source protein,
Sourcing,
good source fibers,
exactly.
good source vegetables. You're not going to eat like just crap or fast food or processed food from the frozen food section. Like that's not going to promote good recovery, which for a good system. And recovery basically should mean like you're building your system to be better than it was the day before. You work out, you put a stress to recover. What do? You make it better. When you get a cut and you're bleeding, you take care of it, you wash it, you clean it, you maybe put a band-aid on it. What's it do? It recovers and it builds new skin, stronger skin. It's the same thing we're doing with our system. I wouldn't get a cut and then be like, I'm not going to clean it. I'm going to rub some dirt on it. I'm going to like not take care of it at all. And that's what some people are doing with their bodies. They're literally
Yeah.
taking a cut, letting it just open up and just collect bad bacteria and get dirty. And like, that's not how the human body needs to function. And when it does go that way, things go wrong.
And I think a lot of times taking that analogy is like people will have the cut, they'll know that like alcohol might thin their blood and can exacerbate the bleeding, but they want to do it anyway because it feels so good. And it's like we have to step out of um, that solely amygdala processing. Like we are creatures and we have to know our biology, but we have to know that we also have a tool to which no other creature has, which is that prefrontal, that neocortex of higher thinking and understanding and redirecting the way that you think about something or change your behavior and change the way you do things to lead you to the best body and brain and life you can lead. So I think that's a really important piece too, is like really that self accountability, that self regulation. We talk about intelligence. Emotional intelligence is not only awareness and motivation, but it's self regulation. So I think that's a good way to wrap it up today. And this week we have two food for thoughts. I'm gonna say mine, then Eric's gonna say his. The one that I thought was applicable for today's topic in terms of recovery and being methodical about it, um, goes like this. Freedom is not procured by a full enjoyment of what is desired, but by controlling the desire. Epictetus.
Love it. All right, I got mindfulness means being awake. It means knowing what you are doing. I think everyone should be aware of what they are doing on a daily basis in life.
I like it. Thanks for listening. We hope you gained something from this episode. Our mission is to help people live their best life, both physically and mentally. Check out thinkfitnesslife.com for additional resources and schedule a complimentary assessment with one of us. We're always here to help.